If you guys are looking for the best settings possible to have the best accuracy you can in the game, if you want your aim assist to feel sticky, feel like you can actually not get off of the enemies and just stick onto them and feel like you're actually hacking, you've come to the right video. We're going to be looking at a lot of settings in this video that's going to help you actually increase your accuracy, stay on target even though the enemies are moving, and just drop them quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my settings, but I'm going to talk about every single setting that I purposely use, even if it doesn't look like a good setting, to show you guys why it's useful, how it's useful, and what it does to your actual accuracy in game. So we're going to get into all of that. But first off, before we get into it, guys, today's sponsor is MMOEXP. If you guys want to check them out, link down in the description. They'll get you camos unlocked, they'll get you easy lobbies, whatever you guys need, they got you covered. So check it out down in the description. All right, so first off, my button layout is probably the most important thing that I have in this game, and the reason I have it set to this right here. So I jump with R3, I stand and I mantle with R3, and I slide and dive with L3. The reason I have this set up the way it is so that I never have to take my thumbs off the aiming, the joysticks. Pretty much, I'm always aiming, I'm always moving, and those thumbs are not moving. And the reason I do this is because if there is enemies running by and I'm sliding and I'm diving and all that, I don't want to take my thumb off and then lose a valuable second or two that I could be aiming at enemies instead. I also don't have back paddles on my controller, so it's one of the main reasons why I'm doing that. Now, another thing that I also do, and I always recommend people do, is turn off controller vibration. The reason you want to turn this off, it's going to feel really awkward. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it's gonna feel really weird for the first few days that you turn it off, but you're gonna definitely want to turn this off, because when your controller is vibrating, especially if you have it set to like something pretty high, the intensity up to 100 or something, your thumb is vibrating with it, and that means that your accuracy is also changing. So every time your thumb moves, your joystick is moving slightly with it in the opposite direction, and you're fighting against aim assist. So it's not that good. You actually get better aim assist with the controller vibration off. Next off is the sensitivity. This is important only because it helps you guys pre-aim at enemies. It helps you guys lock onto the enemies before you actually ADS. I wouldn't recommend something too high unless you're really good at controlling it, and I mean like superbly excellent at controlling it, but somewhere in the middle, like a 1.90 is what I'm playing at. It might be the better option. 1.2 is the normal one. That's the default right there, but that's closer to like a 4 or 5, I think, if you were looking at the old sensitivity, the way it goes from 1 to 20. This one right here, I'm gonna play at 1.90. Personally, I think it's not too slow where I cannot turn on the enemies that are shooting at me and stuff, and I don't think it's too fast where I over adjust my accuracy when trying to aim down sights and stuff. So for me, it's perfect. You guys got to find the perfect one for you. It might be 1.90, it might be higher, it might be lower. I can't tell you guys what you need to run. This one is one that you guys got to figure out on your own. After that, we're going to go into the dead zone inputs, all right? Which, by the way, if I do play L1, R1 rather than L2, R2, so I shoot and aim down sights with the top buttons rather than the bottom ones, and that's just because it's more comfortable in my hand. That's the only reason. And I also use control freaks, which you guys can go ahead and use as well, and use code ITSNICK12 to save yourself 12% on those. They're great. Control freaks extends your joystick, it gives you more grip on your joystick as well, so it's just really easy to stay on target. I use those. There's a link down in the description if you guys want to use it as well. Go ahead and do so. I'm not saying you need it, but they do actually help. I've been using them since even before they sponsored me. Now, dead zone inputs and trigger effect. I have trigger effect off because I play with L1, R1 anyways, but if you are playing L2, R2, I still recommend turning it off. The feedback that you get from pressing those buttons with full haptics on PlayStation 5 controllers, it's not worth it in my opinion. Now right here, I got my left stick minimum to 1. I have been testing it. I still get some stick drift, so I'm gonna put it up to 3. My left stick max, I used to play at 25. Now I'm playing at 45. The reason for this is because I just want more control over my movement and stuff. The lower you put this, the faster you will sprint out just by touching that joystick, but honestly, I just want a little more control because I want to walk and stuff rather than sprint right away, so I'll leave it at that. My right stick minimum, I find the stickiest is when you go higher to like closer to 15, but in all honesty, you also lose a lot of your joystick if you're going up to 15. So I'm gonna play at 7. It's kind of in the middle of what actually 10 would be in the middle of what I recommend, but 7, 8 seems to be really nice for me. It's still pretty sticky. You could go up to 10 if you want it to be really sticky, but I'm gonna play at 7, 8. And the reason for this is because if you put this to 0, any little micro movement, even if you just barely touch your joystick, it's going to fight against aim assist. The aim assist is going to be weaker. It actually is. You guys can test that yourself. Go into a game, put it to 0 for a bit, and then go and put it up to like 10 or something. You'll feel it yourself that it is actually stickier when you put it up to this. And then right stick max, 99 is the highest value. I think 100 is just there just to look nice, but honestly they're the same. So you put it to 99 or 100, it is what it is. Now in aiming, this is going to be really important. If you want your accuracy to feel really nice, I say this all the time, all right? Well, first off, play on gradual. I play on gradual unless you're really good. If you're like Scump, you can play on instant, but I would recommend gradual to anyone, okay? The reason for this is because when you begin aiming down sights, it's going to gradually turn into your ADS sensitivity. So if you're playing at like a 4 sensitivity, but then your ADS sensitivity is a 0.90, instant is gonna feel really bad. It's gonna be really hard to snap on enemies. Gradual is gonna be the nice one, because then it's gonna slowly go down from that 20 sensitivity, that 4 sensitivity that you're playing at, down to that 0.90 ADS sensitivity, which is kind of, I think a 0.90 is somewhere around a 1.4, something like that, actual sensitivity. But yeah, anyways, we're just gonna set it to gradual. It's really nice, or even after zoom. Now if you're really good, if you could snap on enemies, if you could have your center dot, if you could have your crosshair placed on the enemy before ADSing every single time, instant is gonna work. But if you like to drag your shots, drag scope and stuff like that, gradual is what you want 100% of the time. Now linear is really nice. I do recommend linear or dynamic. You guys can play either or. There's not too much of a difference, but I would recommend it. I used to play dynamic all the time, but right now linear feels really nice. And aim response curve slope scale, I have it set to 0.80. The closer you go to 0 on this one right here on the slope scale, the closer it is to standard. So whether you're playing linear or dynamic, if you have this set to 0, you're basically playing standard. So that's it right there. But the higher you have this number, the closer it is to either linear or dynamic. So right now I'm on linear. If I put it to 1.0, it's 100% linear, no standard whatsoever. Right now I'm playing at 0.80, so I'm going closer to standard, but it's still on linear. So I like that right there. And then custom sensitivity per zoom, this is going to be an important one, and this is going to be one that you got to figure out for yourself as well. I personally play on 0.90, and I could play on 0.85 as well. But if you're playing small maps, I would recommend 0.90 or 0.95. Nothing higher than that because it's just a little too fast, but nothing lower than that either, because there's a lot of close range gunfights. If you get into a lot of close range gunfights, you want to stay closer to 95. If you get into a lot of mid range gunfights, 0.90 is going to work for you guys. And the reason I say to lower this is because you want to have that control over your aim when you're aiming down sights and stuff. The slower this is, the more control you guys actually get, and I do recommend this a lot. Now, one thing is, you could go lower, but in close range situations, if people are sliding and they're doing all this kind of movement stuff, they might have you beat. So 0.90, 0.95 seems to be pretty nice right there. Now there's more stuff that we can go into quickly before we actually end this video here, and that's going to be in the graphics. Now you might be thinking, graphics? Why do we need to go into graphics when thinking of how we're playing this game? Well, there's a few things that will help you guys out. One of them is this right here, the field of view. If you set this to 120, you just got to keep in mind that if enemies are pretty far from you, like not even that far, 30 meters, they're going to look like they're 60 meters away. So it's really, you're going to have a harder time getting your crosshair over those enemies before you ADS. So that's a little too high in my opinion. And then 0.90 is a little too low, like you lose too much of your screen. So 1 is like a really solid place, 100 right there. That's what I would recommend. There's a lot, I just got a weird hiccup. There's a lot of pro players that play around 105. And the reason for that is because everything's bigger on your screen. You still see a lot of the playing field, so it's kind of worth having in my opinion, and I just recommend it. It's really nice. And then I play on independent here, and the reason I play on independent is because when I aim down sights, it brings everything in. It makes everything feel bigger on my screen. So if I'm aiming down sights and I'm shooting at an enemy, they're gonna feel like they're a lot closer to me, which is really good. And a lot of people say, well, if you play on independent, you're getting more visual recoil. That's not the case. Your gun is still the same size on your screen. It still looks the same. The visual recoil, there's no difference whether you're playing affected or independent. So I would always recommend independent. It brings the enemies closer to you, and it's just easier to stay on target when the enemies are closer to you. So that's it right there. Basically, like I said, man, you guys can go ahead and do that. And what I would also recommend is turning on weapon motion blur. It sounds really bad, it sounds counterintuitive, but when you're running around the map and stuff, and your weapon is out of focus, you're going to focus more on the map. You're going to focus more on the enemies. You're going to spot the enemies easier, because have you guys ever looked at a picture where there's one person in focus and everything else is out of focus? The first thing you look at is the thing that's in focus. So if you put your weapon out of focus, you're going to be focusing on that map, on the world a lot more. But that's going to be it for the video, man. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to drop a like on this one. I would truly appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel with those notifications turned on. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Nick, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.